Okay, so today's review we're going to go a bit farther back. I'm going to be reviewing Dishonored. Now, Dishonored is probably one of my favorite games. It definitely ranks in my top 10. And that's because it really doesn't have any faults to it. Well, hardly any. There are a couple of things that I wish they would have changed about it, but overall, they did an amazing job. Now, fault number one that I have was it was just a tad on the short side. Not a big deal, but depending on how you play the game, could either take you the relative 8 to 10 hours to finish, or it could take you as little as around 5 or 6. But that's all on how you play the game. My second fault is that, and this is really not a big deal, but I just wish that they would have made the entire game an open world. Now, this isn't to say that the game is linear. Not at all. While it's not a completely open world, each mission is its own open sandbox. So, it's kind of almost there, but they sort of limit it to each map that you go to. But on each of these maps, you can explore anywhere you want to go. And that's really all I had for any sort of faults. I mean, excuse me. Like, the story is not award-winning material, but you're not going to play this game for the story. You play this game for the gameplay. And the gameplay is phenomenal. I mean, just the sheer amount of tools and abilities at your disposal and the freedom of movement, everything is just perfect in that respect. Now, this game has been sort of described as a mixture of BioShock and Assassin's Creed with maybe a bit of like Elder Scrolls thrown in there. And yes, it does sort of draw on all these different games, but it sort of takes them and makes it its own. It really sort of stands out from the rest. Now, what I said before about how you want to play it, if you've never really heard of this game or seen anything on it, this game features a lot of choice. And when I say choice, I mean in how you want to go about each mission. This game literally gives you the option to go the entire game without killing a single person. That's the amount of choice that we're dealing with here. I mean, there's so many different ways to play this game. And that's partly due to the fact that there's so many different abilities and gadgets that you can upgrade. And what they did was they made it so you can't actually upgrade everything in one playthrough. And there's no New Game Plus, so you can't just keep going and literally upgrade everything. They want you to focus on your playstyle. And that sort of determines how like the outcome of the game will be. Because you could go in and just kill everybody, not care about being seen by anybody, and just sort of go on a bloody rampage if you want to. And that'll, affect the outcome of the game. Or you could be really stealthy and not be seen by anybody and not kill a single person, and that will affect the outcome in a different way. And I mean, you could mix and match these. You could be really stealthy but kill a lot of people, or you could sort of just run past everybody and not care about being seen, but just try not to kill anybody that way. I don't know, I've never tried it like that, but that could be interesting. And depending on what abilities you get and what gadgets you want to use really determines which way you're going to take it. And now, because of the multiple different ways you could play the game, a lot of the game is really, really dynamic. A lot of the game focuses on that dynamic gameplay. I mean, depending on whether or not you're killing a lot of people or not will determine how many uh, sort of aggressive things are in the world. Like, there's a plague in the city that you're in, and the more people you kill will cause more plague rats to appear. And so that's just one more thing that you kind of have to deal with if you go that way. And even like the main enemies, like guards and things, can be really dynamic. Um, in the fact that in one playthrough you could find a hiding spot and it could be perfectly fine, but in another playthrough you could have, say, startled a guard in such a way that now your hiding spot is directly in their path that they're searching. And it keeps you on your toes, and it makes everything feel fresh when you're playing it over and over again. The stealth aspect of this game is really great, and that's really the reason why I got this game, is because there are so few games that allow you to really do stealth well, and this game really does it very well. The developers actually wanted the game to focus a lot on not just horizontal mobility, but also vertical mobility. So I mean, if you go into this game with the mentality that it's just any sort of action game, you're probably going to be sticking to the ground most of the time and not even realize that you can climb up to certain areas that you might not have noticed, and the game actually, as your first ability, it gives you a sort of short-range teleport, and you can use that to get to areas that you might not have seen before if you were just sort of going into this game and thinking it was going to be any sort of regular action game. And so this game doesn't necessarily focus more on hiding behind things as far as stealth, but also focuses on getting above enemies and sort of sneaking around them that way. So I mean, this game is damn near perfect, and if I could give it a 10 out of 10 I would, but I did say that there were a couple of faults at the beginning, so I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. This game is really fun. If you haven't played it, definitely go play it. It's just fantastic. That's it for today. I'll see you guys next time.